So we talked broadly about you, which was amazing. And then we talked a little more focused about service and what it means to be a public servant and public service, and the difference between government service and public service that anyone can do, right? Whether they're an elected official or not.
Right.
But now I want to talk a little bit specifically about Stonecrest. So let's talk about social media and the fact that many residents of Stonecrest have taken to social media to voice their concerns and their desires regarding community and economic development.
Yeah.
Two-part question. Do you follow those conversations in Stonecrest, in those Stonecrest focused Facebook groups on Nextdoor? And now we have a new podcast called Stonecrest Weekly Podcast that is also engaging community and having conversations, public facing conversations about the issues that we're dealing with and the thoughts that we're thinking, a lot of us, right? But don't have opportunities always to voice them. How does, if you're listening to them, right? How does that inform your policy and decision making?
Yeah, so I'm definitely in tune with all of the social media platforms and what comes positive, negative, and all those things in between. Of course, we have to do our best to weed through kind of, what truly is a city function versus a state function versus a county function. But also in that, trying to provide the right resource, regardless if it's our function or not. I think it's important that we educate, that we continue to educate, and then also that we are that bridge and that gateway for those resources, whether it's in the city or not. So I am attuned to what's going on. Actually, I really don't have a choice, because even if it's not me looking at it, someone's sending me what's on there. And I say my team, which is like my husband and my best friend and my mother-in-law and my mom.
That's the
like,
go
hey,
team.
I don't want people like, oh, she's got a team. Yeah, it's like the people who live with me. But they're like, have you seen this? Did you see that? So people send me stuff all the time. But yeah, I'm definitely in tune to it. I do what I can to provide clarity when there's misconceptions, to provide, like I said, be that gateway for that resource, should it not be something that the city takes care of. But most certainly, if it is something that is well within our wheelhouse, that we take that and try to solve the issue, or take the suggestions and figure out ways that we can implement them to just have our citizens feel like they're close to the government, as they should be, which is the purpose of having a local government, that you are close to it. A lot of it is the need to just educate on how things work, how we get to some of these solutions. Some of it's not as simple as it may seem, and it may not be as simple as we want it to be. I would love to just wave a wand and have certain restaurants right here. But it doesn't mean that because they're not here that we're not working to get them here. I see a lot of things on social media that, why can't Stonecrest get this? Well, it's not that we're not trying to get that. That is most certainly for sure. There's a lot to bringing in certain businesses, and those businesses being sustainable. There's a lot to, especially in a cityhood. There's a lot of things we have to get our feet settled on before certain lines of business feel confident that we're prepared to be able to help them sustain themselves. It's one thing to get a business here. It's a whole other thing to keep it here, right? And so that's something I think we don't give enough credit to, is the work it takes to get them here is nothing compared to the work it takes to keep them here. And so in order to keep them here, there are things that we have to see before we start to recruit. Well, to keep them here, we need certain things. We need to have certain things in place. We need to have certain systems and infrastructures. There are certain things we need so that we know they will stay. So we don't want to put the cart before the horse, but we hear the concern. We're working on it. We're building every day, trying to really, and I say this and I mean this, build back a better Stonecrest. I mean that sincerely, because there are certain foundational steps that we did not secure. And I say we, although I may not feel personally responsible for not securing them. It is a team effort. And so where one fails, we all fail. And it's not that we failed intentionally, but it is that there were some foundational steps that for whatever reason, we did not secure. But we most certainly have them secured, locked down, glued, stuck in place today. And so because of those great strides and changes that we've made, we are now able to say confidently that we can stand on that foundation and now build it. I don't think that the foundation is as weak as it was before. I feel now I'm more confident than I had ever been in the last 4 years that our foundation is solid and strong now. So now we can put some of those things in place to help satisfy some of those desires of our citizens. But it most certainly does not go without being noticed that there are concerns and suggestions that we find very valuable.
That's good. You mentioned that there were things that you have to have in place. Do you have it? Can you share examples of things that need to be in place in order for the city to see the type of development that is desired here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing we needed, which we have now, is a comprehensive plan. A lot of developers look at your comp plan. They want to know what your plan is for your future growth. That gives them a very good indication of whether or not their business will survive. Right. So we need to have a comp plan. We have that. One other thing we need to have is an economic development plan, which is what we are funding in the next budget to be able to do. That gives a guideline, a basis to business owners and constituents, really, if you take a look at it, that tells you what our plan is and what methodology we're going to use to achieve that economic development plan, what they can expect. Some of those things, like those are some of the examples of things you have to have in place. I can bring it down a little bit more and say beautification. Right? When a business, a potential business is coming into the city, or any city, they want to see how clean it is. They want to see what the current businesses look like, right? So not just, I think we focus a lot on just the litter on the ground. I think most business owners understand that where there is densely populated areas, where there's a lot of foot traffic, there is also litter. We do need to do a better job. And we have, by the way, extended a contract from the folks that maintain our park system to now maintain our right-of-ways, our main roads and our thoroughfares, to be able to get that litter cleanup. So that is a huge win, by the way, a huge win. So we'll begin to see that pick up more as they do that in the interim of the county coming in. But there's not just right-of-way litter. Businesses also look at what is the facade of the current businesses. What does their property look like? How are they maintaining and keeping theirs up? Because they most certainly want to make sure, especially if they're going to own that property, that their property value remains high or grows and does not decrease. So there needs to be some intentional effort into making sure that we have the current businesses, that we provide assistance and resources to get them up to par as well. We have to set an expectation. We set that bar, right? And then those who are below it, we help them get to it, so that we have authentic recruitment, because they see it with their own eyes. They hear it when they read, they hear it when they see stories, they read it, they see it with their eyes when they read articles, but most certainly when they come through our city, they will see that here is their expectation and here is the percentage of those who have met that. So we most certainly can come in and jump right in seamlessly, because we too have those same expectations. So those are just some examples of things that need to be in place before we really can, I think, honestly expect a Papados of sorts. There are just certain things that we need to have as a city, which is why we became a city, right? And I think sometimes we forget that we became a city to solve these problems. We didn't become a city to the very next day say, you're not fixing it. That's why we're here. We're here to fix it. But if we can't fix it in one day. We can't fix it. We have to set a city up. And you set a city up, you get its foundation, you stand it up, you provide services, and then those services turn into those solutions. But some of it is just it's just a little bit of, and I appreciate it though, because if we didn't have an engaged community, why are we here? So I appreciate the push. I do. I appreciate those staying engaged, saying we demand this, because that helps us set that expectation, right? If they demanded more McDonald's, then that's an expectation different than if I demanded an Atlanta fish grill, right? So that helps us set what that expectation is for our community. But it does have to be tempered a little bit, because we have to set the city up before we can solve those issues. And sometimes folks just go, you're a city now, fix it. Right? You're here, fix it. What's taking you so long? But it took 20 or 30 some years to get here. It most certainly will not be changed in 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement, and also understand being impatient, and also understand what I believe is our society's tendency towards wanting to be instantly gratified, right? I think endemic in our culture is some impatience. But speaking to this impatience, I want to speak to, because I don't think I can't. So I want to speak to the fact that many Stonecrest citizens have felt and have articulated in different platforms that they have felt embarrassed and injured by many of the practices and behaviors that they've seen happening in council, embarrassed and injured by allegations of financial mismanagement, collusion, corruption, and in city government. We have residents expressing that they feel scarred by cronyism, by lack of transparency, by deliberate attempts to disengage and disenfranchise citizens. Yeah. And even as the initial promise of Stonecrest seems to be a municipality built on this concept of, for the people and with the people, many would say that it's falling short. In your conversation with me, you've spoken to the efforts that council is taking to rectify some of those things. How can you speak to how you see yourself involved in leading the city's transformation and redemption efforts, and what hope you have to share with Stonecrest residents?
Yeah, let me answer the last part first.
Okay.
I have all the hope. I have all the confidence that one can have that Stonecrest can and will be everything we want it to be. I think that potential will be realized. I don't think the bump in the road is an endpoint for us. I actually, of course, ideally, I wish it never happened, right? But if I had to choose a point in time, I would prefer that it would be early and not later. So the silver lining is that we were able to expose it early, and not let it get to a point of no return. Although it may feel like that because there's media spectacle and there's all kinds of things flying back and forth, but we are not at a point of no return. We've actually made more progress in the last 150 days than arguably in the last 3 years, right? So we are not at a point of no return. That potential is most certainly going to be realized. And we are standing strong and fighting hard and continuing to press on despite it. I think it's actually a hero story of sorts, that there was a villain, but we as an infantry were able to stand strong and defeat that villain and become successful and prosperous on the other end. So I'm excited about the future. I truly am. Like I said, I would prefer it never happened, but if I had to pick a point in time, most certainly sooner better than later. So I relate to that embarrassing feeling. I most certainly relate to the pain and the scar. Not to say that someone else's pain or scar is more than another, but to be sitting in this seat and to have been through that, personally and professionally, is something that I most certainly will take as a learning and life experience. But it does have its wounds and it does have its scars. We did all the things that we needed to do to set a new course, to truly begin to right those wrongs. We've apologized on numerous occasions, in press releases, in one-on-one conversations, in the media, in council meetings. You just saw another version of an apology on behalf of for something that we didn't even do. And we didn't do any of it, honestly, but we are just fighting very hard to right those wrongs, to make folks proud, to be Stonecrest proud. There's something to be said about a journey. There's lessons that come out of it that you may not be, you're better for it because you went through it. That you may not be as strong as you are. You may not be as informed as you are. You may not have your eyes wide open as you have now, had you not been down that road. So although it is a tough road and one that you probably would not choose over and over and over, you most certainly have lessons that will make you bigger, better, and stronger going forward. So I've played a big role in that. I think if anyone has followed this city from inception, I've played a big role in that area. Most recently, I think people, because it's hit the media, that they start to kind of, oh, she's talking a lot, but I have been that force from day one. Over the years, others have joined. Others have finally seen that smoke screen lift. But the smoke screen was never before my eyes. It just took a little time for others to shake it. So once that support came, my voice became a little bit stronger. Not to say that the voice was never there. It became a little stronger when there was more support. And then of course, when the media takes it, it just becomes a beast of its own. But yeah, I've been a part of that from day one. And it's just ingrained in who I am. And so I'll continue to be that person. The hope, of course, and the goal is that we don't have to be those kind of people anymore because we've made those changes. We've created those policies that fill those gaps. We have where we see something that's not right, that we fix it immediately. We address the issue. We don't go around it or pretend like it's not there. We take it head on. I like that Stonecrest. I like that government. I think that shows the people that we are willing to try to put Band-Aids on their scars and on their wounds and bring that confidence back to them. I think we're doing that every day. We're not perfect. We will still have bumps in the road, but we most certainly won't have kinds like we've seen before.
Right. And I think we've seen some of that, especially in the reconstitution of committees and boards, right? I do want you to share with viewers what boards and committees you sit on or chair or assist with specifically, how you see your role in these groups, how you would characterize the effectiveness and efficiency of the process to recruit committee and board members from the residents. Like, what does that process look like? And do you think that it is the best possible way in its current state? And then what offices, agencies, and committees do you think are still needed in Stonecrest? That was a lot. So if you need to say anything else, repeat it, I will.
I'm gonna do the best I can to answer each part. So I am the chair of the Finance Committee, but I also sit on the Film Commission. I'm trying to think if there's a third one. It's possible that I'm on another one. But mainly it's the Finance Committee and the Film Commission. The Finance Committee's role, it's interesting because we created the Finance Committee a couple years ago as we did the other committees. And for reasons we won't go into right now, those committees were not reconstituted. But a lot of the work that the committee, and the original concept for the committee was for the Finance Committee, a lot of that work has been done now because of some of those bumps in the road and challenges we have as council members. have solved some of those policy problems for us. So we've already rewritten the purchasing policy. We've already kind of created other policies and ordinances that didn't exist as far as oversight of check signing abilities and so on and so forth. So the role of the Finance Committee has changed slightly from the concept that it originally was designed for, but it is now there to assist our finance office, which we now have, which is also a great win, with any areas of policy that need to be updated or created. So for example, we updated the purchasing policy, which has portions of travel in it, but we truly need a travel policy. So that is one goal of the Finance Committee, is to look at policies and procedures that the CFO and the finance team thinks need some adjusting or creating. And we go through those and try to provide that to the CFO, who then, of course, as a committee, we make those recommendations to the city council for just financial policies in general. We also are a part of the budget process now, which we didn't have before, which is awesome. And so this is going to answer two parts of your question, because the committees we have are oversight committees, are citizen oversight committees, which are slightly different than other government committees that you see. So a finance committee is typically one that doesn't have constituents on it. If you look in the county system or the state system, you don't find citizens on those kinds of committees. We took a different route. We said we want to have the SMEs in the community, be a part of these community oversight committees, to be able to help guide these policies, so that we make sure that we have the voice of all of our stakeholders, whether it's a citizen stakeholder, a business stakeholder, an elected official stakeholder, or a staff member stakeholder, that we have all of those voices at the table to make these policies work around for everyone, right? So that's something that we didn't have before. It's not a concept that you see in many places, but because Stonecrest wanted to make sure that it wanted to make sure that our constituents' voice was embedded in our processes, that we decided to create these oversight committees and allow them to play a role in it with us. And it's been so helpful. Oh man, our finance committee meetings I mean, we've got some rock stars on there that are truly, our CFO is so daggone excited to have those like-minded folks in the room with her as we, have those conversations and talk through budget and policy. So it's really cool. It also gives the constituents a chance to ask those questions about how the budget is put together, about making sure that certain projects that are desirous of our community are funded in the budget. So it just has so many benefits to the structure that we have in place for it. That I'm truly excited to create more committees. Some committees are long-term, kind of standing committees. Some will be just ad hoc to help us achieve a certain goal. The overlays is one that we had that we then kind of recreated to a parks advisory committee. Once they kind of satisfied that overlay job. So yeah, I mean, we're just finding different ways to inject community engagement. And I think that's what we see on those social media platforms. That's what we see in those emails, is we want to be engaged, find ways to do that. And I don't think that was happening prior to now. I think with this restructuring, this delineation of power, the city council was able to inject more of that vision into our staff and assign them to come up with creative ways to provide more community engagement. And the citizen committees is just one method.
That's true. That's true. So community-based participatory action research is the love language of mine, and community engagement and community dialogues just really speaks to my soul, because I like people-centered policy design, right? And so when I think about the process to recruit committee members, I wonder about the equity implied in the process. Like, is it an equitable process? Is it accessible for all Stonecrest residents? can any and every Stonecrest resident, and how do Stonecrest residents make themselves available or find ways to sit on committees and boards?
Yeah, so this was a good example. That the first time we did it was we made in one of the council meetings, we announced that if you were interested in being on any of these committees, that you should reach out to your council member. And when you reach out to that council member, let them know, one, that you're interested, in two, just a small summary of what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and why you're an expert at it, and why you want to be a part of it. And so we put that on the city website. We also announced it in more than one council meeting. So we had it on our social media platforms for the city, and we had it on our website. So we asked the community straight on, no holds bar about it. If you want to be a part of it, reach out so that we can get you on our list and we can get it all approved. Now, of course, because we have a charter, we have to follow that process for appointing and approving. But the way that we gathered those who wanted to be a part of it was we literally just asked, hey, if you want to be a part of it, let us know. And reach out to your council member or any council member or any staff member, whoever you can get the word to, get it in so we know who you are and we can get you added. And that's exactly what we did. Of course, some committees had way more engagement than others. Some other committees, we had to really just think of who in the community we thought would be best suited for it. But it's most certainly much easier when people reach out and say, hey, I want to be a part of that. I'd like to play a role there. I'd like to add my expertise. That makes it a lot easier than having to kind of pick up the phone and try to just beg folks to please be a part of this or that. So some committees are just, more attractive than others, but all of them have a value, and we are striving very hard to continue to press upon people that citizen engagement is something that we stand strong on and that we are going to continue to encourage.
Okay, and that's going to nicely transition us into our last segment. And I'm just going to ask that you bear with me. I want to wrap this up, but I do. Is it okay?
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay, good. So the last part of my thought process on the Stonecrest section of our conversation is to think about the charter. So I know that early in the city, in the history of the city, not that it's so long, but earlier in the history of the city, it feels like it's been a million years. Okay, so earlier in the city, I was so frustrated with the charter. Like, I hated the charter because I was like, the charter is making this possible. It was like every time there was an issue, well, it's the charter. Well, change the charter, So y'all did change the charter. You made some changes to the charter. One of the things that I recall is that I had asked a question a while back about a charter committee, and the response I received verified that the charter must be reviewed every 5 years. And we're coming up on the 5 years. So what's the process that the city plans to take to engage citizen and get citizen input on that review? Because here's another thing. These things are written, they're drafted, right? We talked about the legislative part. You have a master's degree. You have this. We talked about needing experts. I always get a little like when I hear the word expert, because the word separates. The word separates. Yeah. So if I'm not an expert, can I not voice? Is my opinion, is my thought, is my need less valid because I'm not an expert here? So, and is my need to understand less important because I'm not an expert here? So I wonder what's the process that the city intends to take to inform residents and engage them in the process of reviewing the charter?
So I'll be honest with you and say that we have not had that collective conversation today. So I can tell you what I think we should do, but we have not sat down as the council and said, how are we going to do this? Of course, you can imagine there have been so many other things that we have had to sit down and talk about here lately. And the transition, of course, is on the top of that list as we move away from the third party managed staff managed by the third party and move into staff just being directly employed by the city. Of course, that is what is always on the top of our list until we complete that transition. So this is not something that has come up as a group yet. But SB 21 does designate that the Charter Review Commission will be made up of a certain amount of people appointed by certain places. So there's one appointment from the mayor, there's one appointment from each council member, and then there is it one or two? There is one member by the House and one member by the Senate. So that is what, 6, 8 people?
It's not counting. I'm gonna tell you.
I got it in front of me. It's 8 or 9. It's 8 or 9 folks. So out of a city of 56,000, there's 9. Right? There's 9 people. So I would imagine that we would recruit in a similar fashion that we are recruiting for the committees. That if you are interested in being a part of that commission, and you most certainly do not have to be an expert at government operations. Most people aren't, by the way. I mean, that's not like a thing that like you find 90% of people know government operations. It's a very small percentage of us folks who know that well. So you don't have to be a subject matter expert at all for that. But I would imagine that we will recruit very similar that we have with our committees to be very open and outward with it. If you'd like to be a part of this commission, please send in your recommendation. Of course, we want to know a little bit about you and what you do. You don't have to be an expert, but we do want to know, who you are and what you do. So I'd imagine that we'll ask for a little tidbit, and then we'll have to narrow that down to 9 folks. And so the 6 of us will have a selection, 1 person each. So I get, obviously depends on how many people reach out and want to be a part of it. I imagine it will be a very provocative conversation. So we probably will have quite a few, which is great, which is good to have a lot to choose from. But I do not expect that to be a quiet process. I expect us to be very outward and intentional about recruiting for that charter commission.
Awesome. Thank you.